Dubai. Just hearing the name makes it impossible not to think of skyscrapers that defy logic, hotels where luxury reaches almost unbelievable levels, shopping malls that look like entire cities, and artificial islands in the shape of palm trees. It's the place where architectural dreams come true, a city that has sold itself to the world as the epicenter of wealth and ostentation. But what they don't want you to know is that behind this unquestionable glitter lies a reality that never appears in commercials or Instagram photos. Poverty. Yes, in the same city that boasts the tallest building in the world and vending machines that sell gold, thousands of people live in conditions that could barely be called human. Sounds contradictory, doesn't it? But while some collect supercars and stay in suites costing millions, others survive in crowded warehouses, clandestine slums, or even rusty boats. Today, Bello Mundo invites you to look beyond the glittering facade. We're going to explore a side that Dubai tries to hide at all costs, a side that few know about and that many prefer to ignore. If you thought Dubai was just the city of dreams, it's time to discover the shocking truth behind the skyscrapers. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Dubai is one of the 7 emirates that make up the United Arab Emirates, located in the southeast of the Arabian Peninsula. Although many people think that Dubai is a country, this is not the case. In fact, it is one of the world's best-known emirates, thanks to its extravagant buildings and luxurious lifestyle that impresses everyone. Located on the shores of the Persian Gulf, Dubai occupies a strategic position that connects 3 continents: Europe, Asia, and Africa. This factor has always been essential for international trade and has helped the city to become a global hub. The climate, desert of course. Summers are extreme, with temperatures easily exceeding 45 degrees, while winters offer a respite with much milder temperatures. Number 2. Dubai known to the world. Everyone knows that Dubai is synonymous with extravagance and innovation. The skyline is dominated by icons such as the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, with its impressive 828 meters and more than 160 floors. Inside, there's everything: luxury apartments, offices, exquisite restaurants, and an observation deck offering jaw-dropping views. It's the kind of place that seems to defy gravity. In addition to the Burj Khalifa, the artificial islands stand out, such as the Palm Jumeirah, shaped like a palm tree, and the World Islands, an ambitious project that recreates the world map in the middle of the Persian Gulf. No less impressive are the gigantic shopping centers, such as the Dubai Mall, one of the largest on the planet, and the luxury hotels, especially the iconic Burj Al Arab. And speaking of this luxurious part of Dubai, we have a video about it here on our channel. Did you know that in Dubai you can buy pure gold from vending machines? That's right. These machines sell 24-karat gold in formats ranging from coins to bars. That's right. While in many places you buy a soft drink or a teddy bear from these vending machines, in Dubai you simply insert your credit card and choose pieces from 2.5 grams upwards, be it a medal, a bar, or even jewelry. It's the kind of ostentation that seems to have no limits. If you want to know more about this Dubai full of excess, be sure to check out our video, What's it like to live in Dubai without limits? Pure luxury and ostentation. It's not to be missed. All this contributes to the image of Dubai as a postcard where every detail seems millimetrically planned to display wealth and modernity. However, here's a detail that doesn't usually appear in travel guides. While the central areas boast huge towers, grand boulevards, and artificial islands, the outlying neighborhoods and even areas off the tourist radar reveal a very different Dubai. Less luxury, more precariousness, and an almost absolute silence about the reality of many immigrants and low-income residents. That's right. While some collect luxury cars, others huddle in suburban neighborhoods or overcrowded housing, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But first, in order to understand poverty in Dubai, it's worth revisiting its past. Number 3. A little history. Before it was the Dubai of lights and luxury, the city was a simple village of fishermen and pearl collectors. At the turn of the 20th century, people lived on the shores of the Persian Gulf at an almost bucolic pace compared to today's cosmopolitan fever. Then, in the 1960s, everything changed. The discovery of oil in the Fateh field brought wealth that no one could have predicted, and that's when the world began to hear the name Dubai. With the oil money came investments that transformed the emirate from a small commercial center into a global city. From the 90s onwards, the construction boom gained momentum. Buildings began to spring up on the horizon, as if by magic, each one bigger and more extravagant than the last. From 1 million inhabitants in 2004, Dubai jumped to over 3 million in just 15 years. But all this meteoric growth has come at a cost. What few people know is that behind every imposing tower or artificial island, there is a workforce of immigrants, many from poor Asian countries. They are the invisible hand that literally builds the city. Most arrived in Dubai with the false promise of great earnings and the hope of working and sending money home to their families. But that's not quite how it happens. Many arrive with promises of good salaries and a decent life, but the reality is often quite different. When they disembark, many have their passports confiscated. The working hours are exhausting, the promised salaries are not paid in full, and there are also unfair deductions that leave them mired in debt. As a result, the dream of sending money home turns into a nightmare. The solution? Move to the suburbs known as Armenviertel, where they live away from the spotlight and tourist routes. Number 4. Armenviertel, the unrecognized poor neighborhoods. Armenviertel is not an official term, but it has gained traction among immigrants and foreign journalists to describe the poorest areas of Dubai. These informal neighborhoods, ignored by maps and urban planning, are scattered around the outskirts of the city, far from the spotlight and tourist routes. Located near factories and highways, they seem to exist as a stark contrast to the luxury displayed in the center. In these places, life is very different from the Dubai the world knows. Water and electricity, when they arrive, are scarce. Some residents connect illegally to the electricity grid, running the constant risk of fires or shocks. Garbage is rarely collected and often ends up piled up in vacant lots, spreading stench and pollution. Housing is a reflection of improvisation. Metal sheets, wood, and tarpaulins form houses that can barely withstand the desert's suffocating heat. Without air conditioning or adequate ventilation, the residents face temperatures that make life there almost unbearable. In tiny spaces of 10 or 15 square meters, several people share every available corner, making the crush part of everyday life. For those who visit Dubai, it's as if they didn't exist, a side of the city that only comes to light if you know exactly where to look. And we're going to introduce you to some of them now. Number 5. Quoz, between industry and survival. One of the places that illustrates this contrast well is Quoz, art and contradiction. Interestingly, at the other end of Quoz, there is a hub of art galleries, mainly on Al Serkal Avenue, frequented by foreigners and the local elite. Thus, in the same district, an industrial and precarious scene coexists with an artistic and sophisticated stronghold, a clash that defines much of what Dubai is. Known for its industrial zones, full of warehouses and workshops, it has also become home to many immigrants who can't afford the high prices of downtown Dubai. Sheds that turn into dormitories. Many workers share large, empty spaces, originally intended for stock or machinery, improvising beds and curtains to create some kind of privacy. Limited services. There are few supermarkets and medical clinics nearby. Public transportation doesn't serve the area well, so people rely on buses provided by companies or clandestine vans. And incidents here are not uncommon. In March of 2007, a protest involving 8,000 workers from the region drew attention to the precarious living conditions. They demanded a salary increase of 200 dirhams, around $55, and an additional food allowance. The following year, a tragedy struck the area. On March 26, 2008, a devastating explosion hit two warehouses in Quoz. The incident began in a gas warehouse, whose flames quickly spread to a neighboring warehouse full of fireworks. The result was catastrophic. 70 warehouses were destroyed, causing damage estimated at around 600 million dirhams, $170 million. The debris flew so far that it reached Al Safa and Jumeirah, very distant neighborhoods. It was the seventh serious industrial accident in the area in a period of 5 years. Another striking episode occurred in 2022 when a young worker ended his employer's life after a heated argument. Remember we mentioned the cases of seized passports? Well, that was exactly the trigger for the incident. The employee had asked his manager to return his passport so that he could go home, but the request was denied. Faced with this situation and already shaken by the pressure and despair, the worker ended up losing his mind and attacking the manager. Number 6. Sonapur, the workers' camp that resembles a prison. When you talk about precariousness in Dubai, you think of Sonapur. The name, which in some South Asian languages means City of Gold, turned out to be ironic. The place is more like a survival camp. There are large housing estates there called labor camps, which in practice are large housing estates where thousands of workers, mostly men, live crammed together. In tiny rooms, it's common to find 8 to 10 people sharing bunk beds that are almost touching. Poor bathrooms and dirty kitchens are part of the scenery, while the desert heat makes everything even more unbearable. The air conditioning, when it exists, is kept to a minimum to save energy, leaving the rooms stuffy and unhealthy. These conditions are so degrading that they are hard to believe. In fact, if you want to understand more about how this reality unfolds, we have a full video here that explores this topic in depth. But be warned, only watch it if you're prepared, because the truth is shocking. The title says it all. The dark side. Dubai they don't want you to see or know. To get out of these lodgings, the workers rely exclusively on buses provided by their employers, which further limits their freedom and reinforces the feeling of total control over their lives. There are allegations of wage arrears and unhealthy working conditions, and even reports that, without authorization from the supervisor, the employee can barely leave the camp. In the image being shown on your screen, for example, the Chinese worker begs his employer to pay him what he owes so that he can go home. Number 7. Anonymous slums near highways 44, 611. Many tourists only know Dubai's expressways for the luxury cars that drive along them. But on the fringes of these highways, there are reports of small communities of shacks where immigrants settle without permission. These are vacant lots, lacking any infrastructure, which the municipality pretends not to see or cracks down on when a scandal arises. As these areas are not recognized, there is no asphalt, no official sewage system, and electricity is almost always the result of clandestine connections or noisy generators. Water, when it doesn't come from improvised and potentially contaminated wells, is brought in by tanker trucks at high cost. In times of heightened vigilance, the authorities often raid these settlements, demolishing shacks and deporting some illegal residents. However, once these people have nowhere else to go, they end up migrating to another remote location and starting the cycle of irregular occupation all over again. Number 8. Boat dwellings. Another little-known face of local poverty is floating housing. In Dubai's canals and harbors, there is a face of poverty that many don't realize. Families and workers living on old boats that are barely afloat. These vessels, which include the traditional dhows, small wooden boats historically used in the region's maritime trade, are far from offering any comfort. Covered in rust with leaks and almost non-existent ventilation, they become a desperate alternative for those who can't afford other types of housing. Life on these boats is as precarious as it is unlikely. Proper toilets? Not a chance. Running water? Only if it's carried by gallons. Electricity comes from noisy generators or makeshift connections. And as if that weren't enough, these floating dwellings isolate their residents. Being on a boat means relying on small dinghies to get to dry land, which makes it difficult to access markets, hospitals, and even work. For many, it's still better than sharing an overcrowded shed or taking a chance in an unofficial slum exposed to repression. However, when the Dubai heat reaches extreme levels, living on a boat without basic infrastructure becomes a real nightmare, testing the limits of one's endurance. Number 9. The invisible side of the system. You may be wondering, how does Dubai manage to allow all this and still sell itself as a first-world destination? This question is inevitable, but the answer is deeply rooted in the legal and economic factors that underpin the system. To begin with, the country's labor laws are weak when it comes to protecting low-income immigrants. Those who lose their jobs only have 30 days to get another one, or are forced to leave the country, creating a constant state of vulnerability. What's more, Dubai's frenetic pace of construction and expansion requires a workforce willing to endure harsh conditions for wages that would be unacceptable to local citizens. And don't think that all this goes unnoticed. The authorities prefer to keep this reality out of the spotlight. When international reports try to expose workers' conditions, the response is often to block information or even expel journalists. Meanwhile, large corporations, many of them multinationals, continue to profit from development, leaving the bottom of the pyramid on the sidelines without access to real opportunities and often without even being able to return home. As Dubai continues its impressive expansion, questions arise that are hard to ignore. How long will it be possible to maintain this stark contrast between the luxury of its skyscrapers and the misery hidden in industrial neighborhoods, makeshift slums, or worn-out boats? Will the golden dream slow down with the saturation of the construction bubble? And how will modernization be possible without social policies that integrate everyone? In the end, many of the workers who keep Dubai running are completely excluded from the glitter and grandeur of the city. They remain invisible, confined to extreme conditions while ensuring that the gears don't grind to a halt. Did you ever imagine that this side of Dubai existed? Was it surprising to discover the reality of slums and boat dwellings? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And of course, thank you for joining us on this journey through the lesser-known side of Dubai. Keep exploring Bello Mundo, because there's much more to come. We'll soon be bringing you new places and curiosities to discover. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on our next adventure.